2 years ago today, the world watched in horror as the conflict between Israel and Hamas exploded into a new, devastating phase. The events of October 7, 2023, were a seismic shock, not just for the Middle East, but for the entire global order. It was a day that shattered assumptions, redefined security, and plunged a region into a war that continues to grind on 2 years later. Today, on the second anniversary, the initial shock has given way to a grim, protracted reality. The stated goals of the conflict, the complete eradication of Hamas and the return of all hostages, remain agonizingly out of reach. The war has become a crucible, forging new political realities in Jerusalem, Washington, and capitals across the globe. This is not a moment for simple remembrance. It is a moment for a rigorous, unflinching reckoning. What are the true, long-term costs of this conflict? How has the global balance of power shifted? And perhaps most critically, what has the immense destruction of the past 2 years actually achieved? We will examine the military stalemate, the indispensable role of the United States, and the profound geopolitical fallout that continues to cast a long shadow over the world. The military campaign launched in response to October 7th was unprecedented in its scale and intensity. The objective was clear: dismantle Hamas's military and governing capabilities. 2 years on, the physical landscape of Gaza is a testament to that effort. Reports indicate that over 90% of the infrastructure in the Strip has been destroyed. This is not just collateral damage. It is the systematic erasure of a modern urban environment. The human cost is staggering. Gaza-based authorities report over 67,000 casualties, a figure that underscores the devastating impact on the civilian population. Meanwhile, the military objective remains elusive. Despite the overwhelming force deployed, Hamas militants, according to intelligence assessments, continue to cling on, operating from a vast network of tunnels and utilizing asymmetric warfare to prolong the conflict. The promise of total victory has been replaced by the reality of a grinding, costly occupation. The most emotionally charged element of this stalemate is the fate of the remaining hostages. For the Israeli public, their return is a moral imperative, a constant, painful reminder of the failure of October 7th. This humanitarian crisis has become the central bargaining chip in ongoing, delicate peace talks. These negotiations, often brokered by Arab nations and the United States, are not aimed at a lasting peace, but at a temporary cessation of hostilities, a deal to exchange prisoners for a pause in the destruction. Domestically, the war has triggered a profound political reckoning in Israel. The question of who is responsible for the intelligence and security failures of October 7th hangs heavy over the government. An election, expected in 2026, will likely be a referendum on this very question. Furthermore, the war has reignited the contentious debate over the conscription of ultra-Orthodox Jews, a long-simmering societal fault line that the conflict has violently exposed. The political stability of the nation is now inextricably linked to the military outcome in Gaza. The conflict's duration and intensity are fundamentally tied to the unwavering support of the United States. Since October 7, 2023, the U.S. has provided over $21 billion in military and financial assistance to Israel. This aid is not merely supplementary. It is, as twin reports from the Costs of War project suggest, indispensable. Without this continuous flow of advanced weaponry and financial backing, the scale and duration of the current military operation would be unsustainable. This indispensable support, however, comes at a significant geopolitical and moral cost. It places the United States in a precarious position on the world stage, where its commitment to international law and humanitarian norms is constantly scrutinized. This brings us to the crucial principle of fairness, a cornerstone of objective analysis. The U.S. has been a vocal and rigorous proponent of international law when condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine, citing the sanctity of national sovereignty and the protection of civilian life. Yet, when similar accusations of disproportionate force or violations of international humanitarian law are leveled against its ally Israel, the response is often characterized by a protective deference. This perceived double standard, a willingness to apply one set of rules to an adversary, and another to a friend, erodes the moral authority of the U.S. and complicates its diplomatic efforts globally. The conflict has also deeply polarized American domestic politics. The war has become a wedge issue, driving deep divisions within political parties and on university campuses. This internal strife is a direct consequence of the U.S. government's policy, which attempts to balance its historical alliance with Israel against the growing domestic and international pressure to address the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. The political cost of this balancing act is rising, and it is manifesting in everything from presidential approval ratings to the rhetoric of congressional campaigns. The most immediate geopolitical casualty of the war was the promising trajectory toward regional integration. Before October 7th, the Middle East appeared to be moving toward a more stable, integrated order, spearheaded by the Abraham Accords and the advancing normalization talks between Israel and Saudi Arabia. The war has effectively put a stop to this progress. The political necessity for Arab states to demonstrate solidarity with the Palestinian cause has made open normalization with Israel politically toxic, at least for the foreseeable future. Beyond the Middle East, the conflict has cast a long global shadow, fueling a dangerous rise in societal tensions. In the United States, a 2024 survey found that 9 out of 10 American Jews reported an increase in antisemitism since the October 7th attacks. Simultaneously, reports of Islamophobia and anti-Arab sentiment have surged globally. The conflict has metastasized into a global culture war, where nuanced debate is often replaced by aggressive, binary opposition. The war has also served as a stark reminder of the fracturing global order. While the U.S. and its allies have largely stood by Israel, other major powers have adopted more critical or opportunistic stances. The conflict has provided a distraction from the war in Ukraine and has allowed geopolitical rivals to point to the perceived hypocrisy of the West. This global polarization, where the same event is viewed through radically different lenses in Beijing, Moscow, Brussels, and Washington, makes any unified international effort toward resolution nearly impossible. 2 years have passed, marked by immense loss, political upheaval, and a humanitarian crisis of historic proportions. The core irony of this conflict is the sheer scale of the destruction relative to the political outcome. The stated goal was to eliminate a threat. The result is a devastated territory where the conditions for future radicalization have only been amplified. The failure is not just military or political. It is a failure of imagination on the part of the international community. We are witnessing a cycle of violence where the only guaranteed outcome is more suffering. The subtle satire here, if one can find it, lies in the bureaucratic persistence of the conflict, the endless diplomatic meetings, the carefully worded condemnations, the billions in aid. All while the fundamental reality on the ground remains unchanged: a population trapped, a government under siege, and a region perpetually on the brink. The long shadow of October 7th is a shadow of unresolved trauma, unfulfilled objectives, and a deeply compromised global conscience. The path forward is not through more of the same, but through a radical shift in perspective, one that demands not just a temporary ceasefire, but a genuine, equitable political solution. Until then, the world will continue to mark these grim anniversaries, counting the cost of a war that promised everything and delivered only devastation. What are your thoughts? Join the conversation below.